And she said something to me that literally blew my mind. Literally blew my mind. I mean, not literally. There were not pieces of Claire all over the kitchen. Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
It's so weird. We were just saying, like, it's strange, like, recording this now for knowing when this is actually going to go live. Like, for example, I don't know where I'm going to be for New Year's right now. And normally I have a fairly good idea. I'm pretty good at, like, planning ahead. And I have no idea. I don't know that you know where you're going to be for New Year's. Like, at the moment, we're all like, who the hell knows? So it's kind of weird that, like, by the time this goes out, that will have already happened, and we'll be like,
hopefully we'll figure it out by then, right?
I'm thinking we will have done, whether we intended to or not.
Very true. Very true.
So today we're basically picking up on, like, the second of this little mini goal setting series that we were talking about. And we started this in the last episode. If you haven't listened to that, I strongly suggest you go back and listen to it. But this came about because at one point we were talking on the last episode about goal setting, and Serena was giving some examples that were in the context of weight loss, because it's something that a lot of people have they set goals around, and so it's a very obvious example that comes up when we start talking about this. And it made me think of something that happened a few years ago. And while this specific example is in the context of weight loss, what we're actually going to do is that we're going to expand it out. We're going to talk about how this is relevant to pretty much all goal setting in different situations. So I had a very good friend of mine who went through an incredibly difficult divorce many, many years ago. And it was a very rough divorce. I mean, I wouldn't say that divorce is ever easy, but this was a particularly nasty version of it. There were no kids involved, so thankfully that wasn't a thing. But in every other way, it was as tough as it probably could be. And because everything was so stressful and there was so much that was going on and so much that was being dealt with, I'm just checking I've set my phone on airplane mode. I have, that she ended up losing a lot of weight as just a result of the stress and situation and not eating as well as she normally would have done. And this is somebody who is very, very like mindful of what they eat and of exercising. At one point they did like swimsuit bodybuilding, so that, like, they're very in tune with their body and size and proportions and weight and everything. I remember one day we were in my kitchen and we were talking about this idea that we have in our minds, that we have this ideal in our heads of, especially as women, where in our society, so much of our value is value in society is directly correlated to what we look like, how much we weigh, how sexy we are perceived to be, et cetera, that so many of us, we have this number in our head. And the number in our head is the number that we think that if we could just get to that weight, we would feel good about ourselves. Now, not necessarily the case. Value needs not correlated to weight in the talk. Like, in fact, I want to say this explicitly. Your value need is not correlated to your weight. Your weight does not determine your value need, never will do. And no matter how much you try to achieve weight goals in order to get your value need met, you're not going to do it. It's not going to, the two don't correlate together. So one won't create the other. But so many of us have a number in our minds, which is like, if we could just get to this point, I'd feel happy about how I looked. I'd feel happy about my body. I'd feel happy about this, and that. And she said something to me that literally blew my mind. I mean, not literally, there were not pieces of Claire all over the kitchen. But like, it felt so powerful. It felt like it literally blew my mind. It was like, I was like,
you were in the right area for all the king's horses and all the king's men, weren't you?
am I Humpty Dumpty?
Well, I mean, like putting it back to, put Claire back together again.
I think I might have need more than king's horses and king's men, quite frankly. I mean, a nice surgeon would be helpful. But hey, anyway, we digress. We were sitting there and she said that through the course of the stress and the weight loss that she'd had and the eating and everything, she got to the weight that was her mental target weight. The weight that she was like, if I could just get to this weight, I would feel good about myself. And what was interesting was she said to me, she said, Claire, she said, I looked sick. She said, I looked really ill. And everybody else was saying how ill she looked. She even saw it in the mirror. Like when she looked in the mirror to herself, she saw how sick she looked. And through like the process of getting support and things moving and progressing with the divorce and being very intentional about like eating and taking care of herself again, she managed to gain weight and she was looking much better in herself. Like she looked like she was feeling better in her body. But the thing that blew my mind was she said, I still have that number in my head. Even though I've been there, even though I hit that weight, even though I could see how bad I looked at that weight, it didn't stop it from being the mental goal. And I was like, and I think that part of the reason for this is a lot of the times for women, because we are so conditioned to think we must be skinnier, we must be this, we must be that. I do believe that for many of us, that number that we have in our minds is a completely unattainable number. So most of us never get to that number. So we never experience that to be like, I'm here. How do I feel? How do I look? So it never occurred to me that you could hit that number, know it wasn't good for you, and yet retain that number. And yet I suddenly started thinking to myself, I've had a number in my head for probably the best part of the last 20 years. And as much as like my goals when it comes to health and well-being now, it's like, I want to fit into my clothes. I want to feel good in my body. I want to be able to build strength and flexibility in my body so that it's going to support me better for longer. Those are the things that I really care about. Those are the things I really want. That number's really never gone away. I maybe don't pay attention to it in the same way I used to, but I still have the same number in my head. Now, I can't tell you over the course of a 45-year lifespan that I have had how many times I've been on a quote unquote weight loss journey, because for the longest time I was like, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to lose weight. We're supposed to get thin. We're supposed to feel good about ourselves and blah, blah, blah. Never once in any of my weight loss journeys have I ever hit that number, ever. I've always thought, well, and interestingly enough, recently recently in the last couple of years, I remember thinking, I don't think I'm meant to be that weight. Like my body shape, my frame, my, like my bone density, my muscle density, like one of the things that Serena and I've seen the same body worker for a long time. And he's constantly commenting on just how dense my muscles are, because I'm a dancer. I was an ice skater for many, many years. And at one point I skated every single day. At one point I danced every single day. Therefore, you build up a certain muscle density. And with that kind of muscle density, I don't think that number is achievable. Like, I don't think I could get to that weight. I mean, I possibly could while being very, very sick. And that's kind of, I think, what happened with this friend of mine, was that you couldn't get there through constructive, supportive means. The only way you could get there, which says a lot. The very fact that the numbers that we have in our heads, and this is not just me, and I've spoken to many women about this, I had the same conversation with most women, and they're all like, yeah, I think that's true for me too. And the very fact that the numbers that we think we're supposed to be in our minds, ideally, is a number that we cannot get to without compromising our wellness, shows you how fucked up our society is when it comes to women and body image and weight, etc., etc. And I know that this is something that resonates with you as well.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's like, as you're saying it, I want to be like, no, I don't have a number, and that number is flashing in my head. It's like, I know exactly what that number is. I hit that number. I think I talked about it on another podcast, like a little aside note thing. I hit that number for one moment on one day. I must have been standing like in the perfect direction. And I got more people like coming from an extreme weight loss. Like I was made to feel gross most of my life. And then I was hearing behind my back that people were like, oh, she doesn't look good. Is she sick? Is something going on? And it's like, okay, so I'm gross when I'm fat. I'm gross when I'm thin. And like, I'm very, you might not be able to tell from the podcast, but I'm fun size. Like I'm 5'1". And
she's extra fun size. As in she's extra fun and she's extra fun size.
Yes. All sorts of fun here. It's growing up. It was always like, BMIs are bullshit. Just going to say that right here and right now.
Yep.
BMIs are bullshit. However, we are force fed this whole, what it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be like 97 pounds. No, it's just, it's not me. And it's like, oh, I'm sure I should be. And it's like the same thing as Claire said, like, and we had this that conversation. I remember exactly that day. And we're sitting there. It's like, yeah, I want to like, yeah, I'd love to think of myself as this like teeny little peanut of a, person. It was like, it's just not my makeup. Like I have weight to me, healthy, unhealthy, like it's just not there. But that number, like, even though I know that's not even a number I want to get to again, it's like, that's the number. That's the number right there. And it's like, it takes a lot of need meeting to get that number, to have it be present, because we're not saying it's not there. We're not like, oh no, we're beyond this. It's like, no, it's there, and you can shush it a little bit. You can make it so it's not the priority.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is that when it and this is like, this all comes from societal conditioning. All of this, like the number is a product of societal conditioning, and I think that part of it is that we always think that we are supposed to be lighter than we are, like because society tells us no matter what size or shape we are, you're supposed to be lighter, you're supposed to be skinnier, you're supposed to weigh less. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit, but that's what we get told. And I want to expand this kind of beyond just weight loss at this moment, because interestingly, like you said something, but I thought, I think again, I relate to it. You said, oh, I want to get to that number. And then I was like, no. You think you want to get to that number. And this is the thing, is that I think I want to get to my number. And my friend thought she wanted to get to her number. She still thinks she wants to get to her number, even though she's been there and it was not good. But I think this is true with so many of the goals that we have in our lives, where it's like, I think I want to get to this. I think I want to get to that. And then either that I think I want to get there is because society has told me I want to get there, or I should want to get there, or I should be there. But when actually, I mean, and I have worked with clients who have created quote unquote success in their lives, whether that is based on how they look, based on what they earn, based on where they live, based on what they do. Like, I mean, like, I'm getting very up close and personal with the microphone today. Apologize for hitting you again. But without question, every single person I have met who has hit a certain level of success, the success didn't give them what they thought it was going to give them. It didn't feel the way they wanted it to feel. It didn't feel the way they expected it to feel. And this is where we end up on this hamster wheel, where it's like, we just got to get to the next goal because this one wasn't good enough. So it must be the next one that's going to be the one. And then that one's not good enough. And it must be the next one that we want to get to. And it doesn't really matter what area of our lives that we're talking about. And like we talk about this, there's a section that we do in the program around the concept of miswanting. It was a concept I learned from a course from Yale called The Science of Wellbeing. And it's this thing where the things that our brains think are going to make us happy either don't make us happy or don't make us as happy as we think they're going to. And they look at lots of different areas of life. And there is scientific research that demonstrates this principle in all these different areas. And so like they look at like cool things like cars. They look at weight loss. They look at, and interestingly, weight loss was a very interesting one. When I saw the statistics on that and the research on that, what I found was something that they hadn't been able to explain. And I think I know, based from a needs-based point of view, why something was happening in a certain way. So basically what they did was they assessed people who were on a weight loss journey, and they assessed their happiness before, at the beginning and at the end. And they put them into 3 groups: groups who lost weight, groups who didn't lose weight, and groups who groups who lost weight, groups who gained weight, and groups who stayed pretty much neutral. And what was interesting was that the people who had lost weight were way less happy 12 months later than the people who had gained weight and the people who hadn't lost or gained weight. And I remember like somebody was like, well, why would that be? I'm like, well, it's really, to me, it's really obvious, because the people who haven't lost weight have in their mind that if they could just lose weight, they'll feel happy or they'll feel good and their needs will be met. Basically, they're looking at all of this is like the goal of all of this is always subconsciously needs meeting. We just don't realize it. So the people who haven't lost or gained, they still have that, well, if I can just lose weight, I'll be happy. The people who have gained weight can be like, well, if I just lose weight, I'll be happy. The people who have lost weight know that the losing of the weight didn't make them happy. It didn't fulfill their needs. And now they're like, oh, fuck, now what do I do? Because I've lived my entire life believing if I could just lose this weight, I would finally feel good enough. I'd finally have my needs met. I'd finally be happy. I'd finally love myself or whatever it is. And that hasn't happened, because that does not create needs fulfillment. That weight loss doesn't create needs fulfillment. There's all kinds of things. They even looked at if there was like if you got into a severe accident that created some kind of significant change to your lifestyle, as in you had like a physical disability or something like that, people thought they would be way like just devastated. And it turned out they actually they tested it. And the truth is people really weren't as unhappy after a situation like that happening as people expected them to be. So same thing with like grades in school, same things with like when it comes to money, they realize, and because of the cost of living increase and because of the inflation increase, I suspect that the number associated with this has probably changed now because the cost of living has gone up. But at the time they did this research, they discovered that up until an income of $75,000 annually, the amount of money you earn did seem to make a difference in terms of your happiness. Well, that makes sense, because under that level, you're not going to be able to meet your basic needs. You're going to have an issue with your foundation function need, food, clothing, like having a roof over your head, utilities, all of those sorts of things. But what was really interesting was once they got over that $75,000 level, it really didn't make a significant impact to their lives or to their happiness. And what's really interesting is that when you say to people, what would you love to be ideally earning? Most people aren't going to say $75,000 a year. They're going to go, oh, I want to be on 250,000. I want to be 500,000. I want to make $1 million a year, whatever. It doesn't make a difference in the way that we expect it to. And I think that this is true with so much of our goal setting, was we have this idea in our head about if we could just hit this goal, then we're finally going to feel good enough. We're finally going to be happy. We're finally going to feel secure. We're basically finally going to have our needs met. And this came up around the context of weight loss. But I think this is true in 95% of goal setting scenarios. Having worked with many clients who have hit many goals and haven't had the results that they were expecting as a result of hitting those goals, all of a sudden, you end up getting to that point. And even if you get to that point and you're not happy, and then you drop away from that point, we talked about this in the last episode. This is kind of the context in which this came up. Like, if you can't sustain that, if you kind of drop again afterwards, chances are you're still going to have that same thought in your mind that I just need to get back there again, even though you've been there. And even though it didn't make a difference, you're going to come up with lots of internal justifications. And all of this is a societal conditioning. All of this is that if we can just, we get trained into believing that if we can just get this or be this or do that, then finally we will have what we want. And that's just
if it
not
was
the
that
reality.
easy, more people would, I mean, like, and that's the thing, like, we've both come from corporate settings, and you see that the people at the top are very rarely, like, seemingly happy and fulfilled. And like, I mean, and maybe they have on a mask or a hat or whatever they're putting on to get through their day. But I've hit a lot of my goals in life that I thought I wanted, and I'd say a significant amount of them I got there and I was like, okay, what now? A lot of them I also got there and I was like, this isn't anything what I wanted. Like, I'm here and now I have this life that I've created that's based on this goal, like working. Like, that was a big one. I had to make this amount of money. And then I got there, I'm like, oh, I feel like shit when I come home because like the work is not fulfilling me in any way. And it's like, we get stuck on this. I know Claire's talked about it in previous episodes, the conveyor belt of life, where, you know, you go to school and then you go to college and then you get a job and then you meet somebody and you buy a house and you get married and you have a kid and this is what it looks like. And there were times I hit some of those goals and I'm like, oh God, oh no, like, no, I don't, this is not for me. And then I was totally lost. And had it not been for the fact that when a lot of these goals that I hit, I had actually been in the work and been doing the work, I was able to do kind of like I got exactly what I asked for. I don't want this. I don't want it. Now, how do I deal with it? And, you know, working with Claire, she was able to kind of change the perspective. All right, why did you want this? And like, one of them was inheriting my family house. I begged for it as a child. I got it as an adult. I'm like, oh, this is home ownership, especially in another state, not for me. And
there's a podcast coming about that at some point. You'll find out at some point just how much that was not what she wanted.
Yeah, none of it. But like, there was a bit of this almost like, I want to call it like a facade of a foundation that like, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, as a legitimate adult, something that I wanted and that I fought for, and I was, you know, emphatic about being like, yes, and I got it. And it was like, oh God, if this didn't work out, like if this wasn't what I wanted, what about all these other things that I've been doing? And like, the experience really took me back and had me sit and be like, what do I want for my life? What am I trying to create? And now I'm able to create the life that is serving for me. And it looks nothing like that conveyor belt.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I mean, and that's exactly, I mean, as I said, you were completely in my head then. Like, that's exactly what we talk about with the life conveyor belt, which, and a lot of people, that's how we end up setting these goals, because the life conveyor belt is what society communicates to us that we're supposed to want out of life and that what we're supposed to be achieving out of life. So it's like, okay, I'm meant to do this, and then I'm meant to do this, and I'm meant to do this, and I'm meant to do this. And the internal process is because that will make me happy. I mean, like, a great example of this is marriage. Like, at one point I wanted to be married. Having seen what so many of my friends have gone through, I'm like, would I love to have a committed relationship? Yeah, that would be nice. Would I maybe like to have a celebration where we celebrate that committed relationship? Yeah. Do I want to be legally married? Fuck no. Like, no, like, absolutely not. That's not something that I really want for myself. May I change my mind at some point? Possibly. Like, that's a possibility. I could change my mind at some point. Right now, for where I'm at, I've seen enough people go through that process to know I want nothing to do with it whatsoever from where I am currently in my life. I've literally had my hands in the help of the divorce process for multiple friends. So like, it's like, it's, well, I've had my hands in for one friend, certainly. And I've definitely been privy to the experience from many others. So like, and a lot of the time, so that's what that is that life conveyor belt is these expectations of the things that we assume the reason that we're supposed to do these things is because we'll feel happy if we have them. It's like, well, why else would we do them? Capitalism, that's why.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Capitalism, patriarchy, all the other bullshit. Yeah, well, a whole other podcast. But like, that is literally why we get funneled down these systems. Is like, oh, well, this is what you're supposed to want. Says who? Oh, okay. You said, no, that doesn't work. So we end up on this life conveyor belt. But I also think that the challenge that we have in this is that we try to create this outside in approach to needs meeting, because again, that's what we're taught by society. It's like, if you create these external things, you'll feel good. If you get the job, the relationship, the house, the car, the vacations, the kids, the whatever else it is, the expectation is that if we can just do those things, we'll be happy. And the irony is, we can even know that that's not likely to be the case. So let me give you an example on this. I think it's over 40, it may be over 35, but single women over, I think it's 35 or 40 without kids are statistically the happiest demographic in the world, I believe. We'll try and add the link to the reference in the show notes so that you can, I mean, I may be remembering it, but general gist is, and it might be in the US versus the world, but it's like the general gist that the research shows that women of that demographic are the happiest. Most women of that demographic want to get into a relationship because they think if they get into a relationship, they'll be happier, even though we can know the science says that's not true.
That's another podcast too.
Yeah, that's also, yeah, you're right. That is another podcast. But it's like, and part of the reason, which I'll kind of just touch on I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but like part of the reason is a lot of women of that demographic, when they're in a relationship or they've got kids, is they sacrifice their needs to try and take care of everybody else's needs. And when they're single, they don't have anybody to sacrifice their needs for. So they actually take care of their own needs better. So they're happier. Like at a very superficial level, that's it in a nutshell. So we take this outside in approach, which is like, if we could have these things, then we'll be happy. And I mean, another great example of this is parenting. Like, how many people have kids because they think it's going to make them happy? And how many people are we now seeing sharing bravely and vulnerably that actually they don't find parenting very fulfilling? In fact, it's boring, or it's tough, or it's hard. And the actual experience of parenting isn't enjoyable. It doesn't fulfill them in the way that they thought it was going to. Feel like you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on this, but and we both thought that kids were in the future, and it wasn't just a want, it was we were both going to be mothers.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to spend a lot of time, like I am an auntie, and I feel so blessed that people have left me into their family to be auntie to their children. And I give these moms so much credit, and I'm sure I could have done it, and like I feel like I would have been a good mom, but I'm like, wow, this is not what they pitched to you when you're a kid. Like, this isn't what it, like, adulting isn't what it looks like. Momming, parenting, like, I give parents so much credit. It's like what we were presented as what this was supposed to look like, especially as women, is so very rarely the reality. And when it is the reality, I have to think that there's something else there that we're not seeing almost. And that's sad. Like, that I think it's like, it's not even possible to have, like, I'm sure it is, but it's like, it's remember, like, life is difficult, and every step on that conveyor belt makes life a little bit harder. Like,
well, and it's like, I remember very vividly, like we were out on a national holiday, we were out on the boat. We'd taken the boat out for sunset, and we were having like homemade cookies and champagne and stuff on the boat. And we were having a conversation with somebody who was much younger than us, and they were like figuring out what they wanted for their life and what have you. And we were talking about it, and we were like, just think about what the possibilities. And there's no like if you want marriage, kids, house, you want the life conveyor belt, great, go for it. But one of the things we were saying is like, one of the reasons we're able to do this is because we don't have kids. Like we're able to have different experiences in life because we don't have children. That's a choice. And it's no more or less valid than the choice to have children. The challenge comes when people have an expectation that doing these things are going to fulfill certain needs. Like a big one is like the value need. It's like, well, I'm not fulfilling my role as a woman if I haven't had kids. Fuck off.
Fuck that.
Like, yeah. I mean, you get the same pretty much the same reaction from both of us. Yeah. It's like, no, my value as a human is no greater or less because I do or don't have children. We've just chosen different paths. And in the same way as like a woman's value isn't less because she has had children. That our value is not tied up in that. And this is where like we want to try and start to flip things around. And when Serena was saying about like starting to approach this in a different way, what she was talking about is taking an inside out approach to fulfillment rather than an outside in one. And so the outside in one is like, if I do all of these things and create all of these things around me, finally, the subconscious belief is that all these needs will be met. And I'm going to just speak from experience, both personally and professionally, working with a lot of people. I don't know a single person for whom this is true. Anybody who has tried the outside in approach, I don't know a single person for whom that is like, yep, check. That is, they have the fulfillment of their needs that they were looking for. So instead, what we suggest in terms of, and this is again, like the goal setting, it's like we set the goal to try to get the needs met. We suggest doing an inside out approach to fulfillment, which is about understanding what are your 12 universal needs, understanding what and discovering what ways of meeting those needs work for you, and then starting to create the life that fits that version of meeting needs that is in alignment with those specific needs being met. And when Serena was like, well, you can start to create a life that feels fulfilling, that's what she means, is that it's like, well, if I know, I'm going to go back to the example I used in the last, in the last episode, where it's like, if I believe that I will feel fulfilled if I just have a partner. And a lot of people, they're not even necessarily looking for the right partner. It's like, if I have a partner, I have like anyone, warm body that happens to sit next to me on the couch, then I'm good. You could go to a sports bar and probably find a guy. But is that guy going to be, and is that relationship going to be in alignment with what actually is fulfilling for you and your needs? Or is it going to be detrimental to your needs? Which is one of the reasons that married women are a less happy demographic than those who are single. Instead, you can go, what makes me feel fulfilled is that I enjoy going dancing. Like a great example for me is that like I'm a physical contact person. I love physical touch. I'm very much a very touchy-feely person. I'm a very huggy person. And I'm very lucky that a lot of my close friends are also very huggy people. I have a very, very dear friend on the island, and I bumped into him the other night. I was with him for like maybe 20 minutes. We must have hugged at least 30 times in 20 minutes because
he's a good hugger though.
He's a good hugger. He doesn't hug everybody though, but we're both very huggy people. So I love that. I love to dance. And I love going out dancing. And the other night I went out dancing. With one of my dance partners, one of the people I dance with most down here in Key West. This is not somebody I have any romantic connection with. He's somebody who I love. I feel safe with him. I feel respected by him. I don't feel like he's going to cross any boundaries. And there is something about like, especially like when we're dancing like a slower, more intimate song, I enjoy that physical closeness. I'm getting that physical enjoyment through doing something that I really enjoy doing. Could I get a hug from a guy in a sports bar? Probably. Would it feel as good to me? Probably not. I mean, it's true. I mean, so often.
Been there hugging the guy in the sports bar.
I mean, it's wild where it's like, I'm just like, I want to I want to get a hug, but we don't think about what kind of hug do we want to get from what person we want to get a hug. And I'm like, I'd far rather get a hug from my gay bestie and my dance partner than I would from a person that doesn't feel in alignment for me. And their presence is going to compromise my needs, because by me spending time, yeah, I might get a hug, but I'm probably not going to feel very safe. My security needs going to be compromised. My love needs going to be compromised, because while I might be getting a hug, I'm not going to be doing stuff that I love. In fact, I'm going to be doing stuff I probably hate to get that. My emotion, experience, expression, it's not going to feel good. I'm not going to feel the way I want to feel from it. And like, you can go through the list, and it's like trying to figure out this. Like, when you think about the goal is relationship. You're going to make very different choices if the goal is relationship versus the goal is to live in a life in alignment with the things that fulfill my needs. And the cool thing is that once you start to learn how to meet the needs for yourself, then you can start to create these experiences within your life that actually support those needs. And then you can then start to create quote unquote goals, outcomes, intentions, whatever it is, however it is that you approach these things in a way that's going to enhance that need meeting rather than compromise that needs meeting. Great example, I think, from this is Serena and leaving corporate life. Like, Serena had this is what I'm meant to do. This is going to make me feel good. And even when she had gone through the needs practice, she knew what the needs were. She's like, I'm doing this to meet my security needs. Yeah, cool, awesome. Okay, how many needs is it compromising? Let's go through the list. Foundation function need, being compromised. Security need, although it was the reason that she was doing the job, it was actually compromising the need more than it was meeting them.
Probably compromising that need the most in that situation, like repeatedly.
Yeah. So that need, the need that she was trying to meet through having this particular job was actually at a deficit. The job was creating a deficit. Love need was being compromised. Acknowledgement need was being compromised. Emotion, experience, expression need was being compromised. Value need was being compromised. Personal power need was being compromised. I literally just, and I remember, I don't know whether you remember it, but I remember watching your face drop. Like, what was that moment like for you, where you had this realization of, like, you created this outside in such a way that was compromising even the things that you were trying to get met?
Well, shit. Like, pretty sure I said that at the time too, but
it's true. Yeah,
I've had quite a few of those instances in my life, and it's just sometimes you get so wrapped up in even doing the work, like,
yeah,
you think that it's like, oh, I know the things, and it's like, okay, and then take another layer off and be like, oh, and like Claire said, it was the security need that this is the need I'm meeting with. I didn't even bother with the other needs, because it was meeting the other needs in other ways. Some of them were green spectrum. Very, 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 very few of them were. They were checking off boxes, but those weren't even boxes that should have been on a list somewhere, because like they were so unfulfilling. But being able to, like, because I remember that moment, then I'm like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do now? Because then it's like this little thing that was like, it was creating this little bit of security, and it was compromising my security, but then my security need was firing off because I'm about to lose this little bit of security. But it's like, okay, just remember that once you let this little piece of security go that you've actually mapped out isn't making you, like, you don't need this as that part of the security. Like, well, look at what you're going to gain.
Yes, you're losing this, but you're benefiting in this way. This is as you say, this is the gain of security that I'm going to get from letting this go. And this is why I think that, like, and this, what this kind of all comes down to is whether we're talking about that weight loss number, whether we're talking about a job, whether we're talking about a relationship, no matter what we're talking about, it's so important to kind of audit from a needs perspective. Because even when you think you know, your brain is very good at convincing you of things it thinks it wants to be true in order to get you to do the things it thinks you should be doing. And the reality sometimes can be incredibly different. So it's really important to look at these things, look at the things that you're doing, look at the intentions that you have, the outcomes you have, the goals that you have, and check in. Is this in alignment for me? Is this actually me? And you put this needs lens on it. So like, and it may be something that you already have, like with Serena's job, where it's like, okay, how many, like what percentage of these needs is it meeting? To what extent is it meeting them? What needs is it compromising? To what extent is it compromising them? And I think that's the thing, is like what happened to me with that number in my head. The reason I was able to, like, I now know I've been such a habit of having that number. I don't think that number will ever fully go away, but I've just not connected to it. I'm not attached to it in any way near the way that I was at one point. Is having that kind of conversation with myself, which is like, okay, to get this number would meet this need maybe a tiny bit and this need maybe a tiny bit. But actually, if I get to that number, I'm probably going to compromise my foundation function need, my security need, my love need, my emotional expression need, my value, it's that kind of consciously presencing and naming and facing the reality of what this is. And it's like being able to go, okay, as a woman of a certain age, if I got into a relationship now, it might meet this and this and this, but it probably would compromise this and this and this. So here's the thing. It's not to say, oh, I don't want to be in a relationship, but I need to be aware of these things. So how do I then get into a relationship in a way that I protect myself from these things happening? And more importantly, I create a situation which is going to create a different kind of experience. Where do I need to put my boundaries in? What does respect look like for me? Where am I in danger of people pleasing? How do I put in strategies to avoid that from happening and to create something that is mutually beneficial and mutually reciprocal and mutually supportive? And so this is the thing, is like, this is where that needs lens comes in really helpful with these goal setting, which is that even just if you haven't hit that goal yourself, sometimes it can be really helpful to do some research on it and be like, what is the experience of the majority of people who experience this thing? And like I said, like that Science of Wellbeing course is a really good, like, here is the actual information. Here are the actual statistics on whether somebody feels good about getting this car or feels crappy about the relationship or the weight loss or what have you. And it can be really good to just remind ourselves of these things. And it's not expecting us to be like, well, I don't care about that thing anymore. But the combination of really looking and seeing things for what they are actually going to do for us or not do for us, as the case may be. And then combining that with this inside out approach, which is like, let me figure out what needs am I trying to meet by having this goal? What needs am I trying to meet by trying to achieve this thing? What are other ways I could meet those needs in ways that feel good for me, in ways that feel in alignment for me? And then once you get to this point where you've got this solid base of needs that you're kind of resting onto, from there, you can start to play a little bit because your needs are kind of taken care of at the base level. Now we get to have fun. Now we get to create. Now we get to see what else could be possible. And sometimes that involves trying things that we never thought we would do, trying things that are different, because some people, for one person, falling out of a plane is terrifying. For somebody else, it's exhilarating. Same exact situation, two completely different experiences of it. Like, I didn't think that it would be that big of a deal for me to dress up as a fairy and fling confetti and bubbles at people. Who knew? Tried it. Really fucking fun. Like, it's really enjoyable. Was that on my list of things on my life conveyor belt that I had to achieve? No. How much fulfillment do I get out of my life from it? So much. And so taking this combination of like looking at reality, whether that is our lived reality, our experience of reality, other people's experience of reality, or the statistics on reality, seeing them from what they are, starting to create this inside out approach. And once you create that base level for yourself, then be able to like, okay, now we play, and really connecting to that kind of inner child energy of like, let's try it. Let's try this thing. And some of the things you're going to try and you're going to be like, God, I love that. That was awesome. And other things you're going to be like, nope, don't need to do that again. Cross that off the list. Let's play and try something else. And just because that didn't work doesn't mean to say there isn't something that's going to work. And it's about finding those things. And that's really, I think, the space that Serena and I are playing in now and have been for quite some time, which is like, let's try something different. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's explore and have some fun. And here's the thing, it's like, even if you don't find the thing that's going to feel fulfilling for you, try saying that 10 times fast. That's a lot of F's in that sentence. You, as long as you can find ways of having fun as you're doing it and enjoying the experience of playing with it and trying different things, that's where you're going to start to enjoy the process, and also maybe find some things that you didn't realize actually were going to be like, actually, that really works for me. And those are the things you want to work into your outcomes and intentions. And those are the things that you want to start creating more of in your life, because so often we get into this space of like, must create the goal. And then everything else goes out the window. And actually everything else is the stuff that's actually going to fulfill you. And you get to the goal and you're like, it's like getting to the top of a mountain. I'm like, I'm exhausted. So what's this view everyone's been telling me about? Oh, it's a brick wall. And you're like, I cannot believe I worked all of that hard and fought that hard to get here, to be like, this is it. Well, there's another mountain over there. Maybe I'll try that one. Maybe that's got a better view. And you end up with the same situation over and over again.
A lot of times you find that, like, once you step out of the space of living up to the societal expectations, it almost seems like, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me like there's a little bit of, I found out how not spectacular it is here, so I'm going to make everybody else think it's spectacular. So, like, at least an illusion, like...
Oh, what you mean is like if like in the when you do the goal setting, I'm going to try to give the perception that it's amazing, even if it's not, to try and feel better about it. Yes, I think that's very valid.
And then you get other people who kind of follow suit, and then they get there and you're both standing there and it's like, well, I couldn't tell you what it was really like up here because it's kind of shitty, but now we're up here together. Yay.
Well, and why do we do that? Because we think because so many of us are dependent on other people for having our needs met. And we think, well, if everybody else thinks that what I'm doing is amazing, then maybe I will still feel a little something, even though it's not what I wanted to feel. And then everyone ends up screwed. And it's like everyone else, like all of a sudden everyone stood around at the top of this mountain looking at this brick wall going, what the hell, Brian? You were the one who said this was amazing. Like,
yep.
It's just a freaking wall. Why? Like, what? And it's so true. And I think that's what's happened with the life conveyor belt, is that people they've tried to give this illusion of this, and especially with the Facebook and social media facades that get created, where it's like, oh my God, my life is perfect and wonderful and everything because I'm trying to feel good about myself. And if everyone else thinks good about me, then I'm going to feel good about myself, even though I'm not really, but I'm going to try it and see whether it works. And then everyone does the same stuff. And it's like, what?
Well, and then you found out then you found out that person's vacation pictures were actually like a toilet seat in front of the computer screen. It was all a facade to begin with.
Yeah, I saw that when you like make it look like you're on a private aircraft with the toilet seat. Yeah,
toilet
exactly.
Seat.
Or someone who's like paid to go and sit in a private jet for 5 minutes to go and take some photos. Or I mean, we've seen it so recently with all the with so many of the tradwife influencers who we're now starting to see the facades coming down, and we're starting to see some of what's actually going on in their lives. And this illusion, this picture perfect Stepford wife image that they have created, when you look behind the scenes, and it's like, and like they're barely holding it up, and they're taking everything in them to try and maintain this facade. But that everything in them is draining them of everything. I mean, there was one recently, it was Ballerina Farm, who was she was like unable to get out of bed for days at a time sometimes. And it's like, that doesn't sound like, and obviously if you have like a chronic illness or something that's different. But like, if you are not in that space, that doesn't sound like a life that is giving you the fulfillment that you're looking for. So there are so many of these examples. And really, we're here to try to act as the like warning and be like, hey, we've been there, we've done that. There's a better way in our experience. And the better way is like needs first, needs lens, needs first. Take care of those, then have a play. And I mean, and it's funny because like people look at us and they're like, what the hell are you two up to now? And like, we're like, having fun. Like,
Always
what about
an
you?
adventure.
And like so often, like Serena and I will say, like, no matter what happens, it's going to be an adventure. We're going to have an adventure out of this. I mean, it's like I'm about to go out on this boat for a couple of months. And I know there are going to be some things about it that are going to be challenging and it's going to be difficult at times and it could be scary at times. And I'm like, it's going to be an adventure no matter what. I may get done with it and be like, that was incredible. Can't wait to do it again. I may get to the end of it and be like, glad I did it. I'm done. We won't know until we do it, until we try. And so that's the thing where it's like now we start to play. But if you do it from if you do it from a place of unmet needs, it's like trying to play needs whack-a-mole without a mallet. And it's like, oh God, that hurts my hand. Oh, fine. Oh, whatever. Rather than actually going, okay, I've got my needs are the mallet. And I'm like, okay, I'm set now. Now what are we doing? Okay, that one needs to be hit. That one needs to be hit. That one needs to be hit. You again? Okay, we'll do you again. Like that's the kind of space that you get to, but you can do it from the place where you have the resources and you have the insight into the ways of meeting the needs that work for you that help you to create a lifestyle. And it's like, I remember thinking, like at one point I used to want a really big house.
Me too.
And because I thought like beautiful big houses, la la la, aren't they beautiful and perfect? Till I started house sitting and I realized what a fucking cleaning headache a big house was. And how many of the houses I house sat for, people had rooms they would literally use twice a year. I'm like, what is the point of this room? And actually they felt cold. They felt unpersonal. I was like, can we just hang out in the day room / kitchen / dining area? That was far more enjoyable for me. One of the things I loved was the fact that I used to live in a house in Key West where I could vacuum the entire room without unplugging the vacuum cleaner. And I'm like, this is life goals for me. I'm like, I've suddenly realized this is really what I want. I don't want a place that is massive. I want a place that is just big enough for the things that I want and need to do there. And everything else is like, I'm good. And so, yes, you can do it through your own experience, but sometimes it can be a tough process to be like, yay, I did this life conveyor belt thing. Nope, that didn't work. I did the next life conveyor belt thing. Oh, that didn't work either. Next life conveyor belt thing. God almighty, are we ever going to get to a point where something feels good to me? And instead, if you can start by taking that needs first approach, you're going to create something that feels much more fulfilling, much quicker. And you're actually going to start to dispel some of these internal myths you have about the way life is supposed to look that would otherwise steer you in the wrong direction.
It gets easier. Like with most of this stuff, it just kind of gets easier to do something different, to be like, all right, I'm gonna try this right now. Like never did I think I would live on wheels and that would be my choice. Like,
yep. Never did I think I would go and live on a boat for a couple of months. Like, and who knows, it may be the best decision of my life. It's going to be a great decision either way, because I'm like curious about the whole boat living thing. And I'm like, no better way to figure out whether it works for me than just go and do it. So anything else you want to add to our little kind of mini goal setting series before we finish up?
I'm good.
So we really encourage you to kind of take this approach with how you approach this year. Like we're in the early stages of a new year now. Like just try and have a little play with it. Look at your needs, try and figure out the ways that are going to work for you. And obviously if you want some help with that, reach out to us. We're happy to help with more information in the program. We will be sharing more information about that in due course. But for now, we just wish you a 2025 that really fulfills your needs in every way possible. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, Please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, although we're often taught the outside-in approach to meeting our needs, in our experience, the inside-out approach is far more fulfilling.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.